Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Hey, good to see everybody here. If you're joining us live, thank you for joining us. And if you are watching this on replay, good to see you again. My name is Abraham. I'm one of your co hosts here.
And I'm Lainey. I'm another one of your co hosts. We are joining you from the Government Contracting Association. And today we have some really exciting things regarding researching organizations, foundations, and how to grow your funding. This is more towards the nonprofit space, but I think if you're in contracting, you can definitely learn some things today.
Yeah, the grants and government contracting podcast is all about you, right? Where we talk about grants and how to become more effective with it and growing your organization through grants. We also talk about contracts where you can grow your organization, mainly your company, through accessing contract opportunities today. Today, we're going to focus more on the grant side of things, and 990 is your secret sauce, right?
Mhm.
That is the most powerful document you can have in terms of looking, spying. I call it spying on people. And so you can legally spy on people. I don't know if you know that, but you can do that. So that's what we'll be focused on today.
Yes, and it opens the door into, everything you need to know about funding, about potential foundations. I think people think it's really hard to, how do you get involved with a foundation you've never talked to before or something like that. We're going to kind of go into the steps of that today, but it starts with the 990. So you want to go prepared, doing your research. You already know last year who they gave to, how much money they gave to, everything. You know everything going in, so when you have your initial contact with them or your initial ask, you're going in fully prepared. It's not out of left field. It's not something crazy. So there's definitely a lot you can learn from 990s. And like Abe said, it's like spying. The only difference is it's all available information for you. So this is all completely public information. You do not have to, some people make you pay for it. We're going to show you how to get it completely free. Don't pay for anything. And just a way to not only spy on foundations, but I think something that some people don't talk about is if you know that there's an organization that is doing some of the same stuff that you're doing, you're able to look at what they're doing. Where are they getting their funding from? What foundations are they getting them from? Maybe you see there's a local business that you're best friends with the president and they're giving money out. Well, perfect. This is the way to find out and the way to diversify your funding. And I consider this, why I wanted to do this today is I consider it a pretty easy way to diversify your funding. We're going to do this. We're going to go through some examples in less than an hour. I'm going to teach you how to do this, but it's something that it doesn't take a lot of time. Maybe if you have an extra 10, 20 minutes, you're really able to dive in, get some good information, and figure out some plans moving forward.
Yeah, and so we got a lot of good content to share with you guys, and it's going to make you wiser, smarter in terms of fundraising for your organization. Now, if you're joining us live, if you could put in your organization name in the chat as well as where you're joining us from, that would be awesome. And knowing the information about which foundations or which nonprofit, and you're benchmarking after a different nonprofit, where they're getting some of their funding, or you're looking at different foundations, because all foundations have to, give out about 5% to qualify as a foundation, as a
Mhm.
nonprofit foundation. Foundations are required to use 5% of the total budget, total funds, and to fulfill their mission, the mission of the foundation itself. So lots of great techniques in terms of what we're going to be sharing with you. But why is this important? Because if you have the right information, you can actually build relationships strategically. If you know who's spending money, you can know who to go build relationship with. If you know who's which agency or which where nonprofits are getting some of their grants from, you can foster those relationships. And I look at it, back in the for some of us, right, back in the early days when I was young, and I'm thinking through, okay, you know what, I need to have information. I'm interested in this young lady. I need to know about who she
Mhm.
is, her family, where she's from. Is she from good people? Is she good character? Yeah, so there's a lot of different things I want to know. I want to know a little bit background information before I pursue somebody. Nowadays, Some of you younger people, you just use Tinder, swipe left, swipe right. So you may not necessarily dig into their profile is all you dig into, but true relationship, you have to really understand people's background. And so the information that you're going to be learning today will be very helpful in terms of how you build relationships with different organizations so that you can get the funding that you need for your a nonprofit, or in some situation your for-profit organization.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us live, make sure to put your name and what organization you're with and where you're joining us from. Me and Abe are located in Georgia. I'm a little bit further north Georgia than Abe. So that's where we're joining you from today, and we're super excited to dive in. We're going to have some opportunities a little bit later. First, we're going to always have something to give away. So we'll have
Freebies,
some
yay! I love freebies.
freebies that you're going to walk away with. But also, I want this to be an interactive process as we kind of dive into it. If there's any examples, maybe there's a foundation you've had your eye on, you want me to kind of walk through pulling up their 990, what I see when I'm originally looking at it, that kind of stuff. Be sure to, kind of give us some examples or some things you're wanting to look at, and we would love to get do it live. So we're kind of doing it for you instead of you having to do it yourself.
Well, if you are watching this on replay, and if you have not really signed up for our, yeah, as a subscriber to our channel, please do so. This is a great time
Mhm.
to click on the notification bell so that every time we do a live session or when the replays are posted, you can actually get those notifications. So like, subscribe, it helps us tremendously. We love what we're doing here, but that's how you can give back to us in terms of what we do. It helps with the algorithm. It helps with the channel. It helps us to know that you appreciate us as much as we appreciate you.
Yes. Well, all right, let's dive in. So, the first thing with identifying potential foundations is, I'm calling it number one, is start with already what you know. So if you already maybe are friends with somebody that works at a foundation, you've heard about a foundation, you've seen stuff online, or maybe then you've seen, your fellow nonprofit organizations get um, grants or foundations, you've seen that on social media, then that's somebody you already know. That's You don't have to do research for that. You're not gonna have to go out and find it. That's a list. And I would recommend that everybody in each organization go ahead and keep that running list. Maybe you see that, especially once you've seen the grant be given, you're late. You're not getting it this year. But for next year, if you see your local power company, if you're seeing a community foundation, a large corporation that maybe their home is in where you're at. So we're located in Georgia. So we have a lot of organizations, for example, Coke. So we have Coca-Cola Foundation here. We have Chick-fil-A Foundation here. We have the Arthur Blank Foundation. That's a
Mhm.
pretty large one here. And you're gonna have the same thing. So also remember of your professional athlete, like the teams. A lot of them have foundations, and a lot of the professional athletes also have foundations as well. So, like for example, us with the Braves, Ozzy Albies has a foundation. So you want to be checking those things of people you're kind of, you might know some professional athletes, but maybe people you're watching. Anytime something's going through your head, if it's a corporation, that kind of stuff, you want to write those down to go check those out because, they could have a grant cycle, or maybe they have an LOI, which means letter of intent. So instead of a grant cycle, some people will get you to write a 1 to 2 page letter to the foundation. And what this is going to do is kind of introduce yourself, say what you're about. Maybe in those letters, I normally like to have a specific ask, so if they are interested in you, they're able to fund that very fastly instead of back and forth of like, what do you want? That kind of stuff. You want to be very upfront. You want them to have all the information, all your contact information. Um, and a lot of times those LOIs are just emails. So it's a 1 page email. You send it directly to a contact that's listed on the website, and they're very easy. And a lot of times they're replicable. So you write one, maybe change a few things, but you know your program, you know your organization. So that's what I like to do, is just start with already what you know, already who you're interacting with, and keep that list going. Um,
Lainey, before we go further, I want to sidetrack for a quick second.
okay.
And foundations, now there are um, organizational foundations that's supported by enterprise organizations and big organizations out there. That's one type of foundation. There's also individual foundations that started by an individual. And let me give you a little bit perspective. If you're watching us and joining us, I want to give you a little perspective why these foundation exists. Now, I'm not a tax expert, and so I'm sharing this from a layman's perspective, but I'm going to speak it from a layman's perspective so you can really understand exactly why these foundations exist. Foundations are used as a way to shelter people's wealth. So
Mhm.
Oprah Winfrey has a foundation. All the different professional athletes, those that get proper tax advice, they have a foundation. And so let me kind of share how foundations work. So if I'm receiving, let's assume I'm receiving $100 million in terms of income per year. I'm going to be taxed heavily on that money. Uh,
Mhm.
40%, maybe higher in different, location, different cities, different counties. Income tax is very high if you're making more than a certain threshold. The average person, their income tax is going to be 15, 20, 21%, on that side of it. But for wealthy, high income people, they're going to be taxed super high. So instead of getting taxed 30, 40, 50% of their income, what they do is they create a foundation and the funds flow into their foundation. Now, the foundation is tax exempt. So, as a tax exempt organization, that money is not taxed at the, let's assume it's a 40% bracket. It's not taxed at the 40% bracket. It is taxed zero. And
Mhm.
then the foundation is responsible for only dispersing 5% for its mission. So now, assuming it's an individual foundation, you can have an individual foundation and you're the trustee of the foundation, you're the director of the foundation. You can pay yourself a salary, you can pay other people to run the foundation itself. You can, and so by doing that, now you're saving, you're only dispersing 5%. So instead of paying 40%, now you're just paying 5% out. So again, I'm not a tax expert, I'm not giving tax advice, but I am saying that people with high net worth, they use foundations as a way to protect their assets. Now, with that 5% of $100 million is still a lot of money that they have to disperse, right?
Yeah.
But it's still $5 million that they have to disperse. Every foundation, they have different interests. Some foundation, they like to use it for research, for health related research. Some foundation, they like to do social support, supporting certain disadvantaged communities, supporting different missions and different nonprofit and other missions that closely align to the foundation itself. So that's the purpose of why foundation exists. Most foundation exists not because they just want to do good. You better believe that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they're not doing it because they just want to do good. Bill Gates moved all of his assets, most of his assets, all of his stocks, all of his income, most of it goes into his foundation, and he paid himself from that there. So, so it's a tax sheltering mechanism, but you as an individual, you can take advantage of all of this foundation, all the foundations out there with that 5% money that must go out to support your missions and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's interesting too coming in like if you're just starting to research with foundations, there's so many of them. Like I think it says we're going to get into this on ProPublica that they have 18 million filings on this website. So there is millions and millions of foundations, but like you're saying, it's personal foundations, it's corporate foundations, it's team foundation. It's everything you could ever imagine has a foundation. And like Abe said, they have to give away 5%. The good thing about us doing this in February, or if you're coming back to watch, is that a lot of them are not going to start their grant cycles, their LOI cycles, that kind of stuff until later in the year. Or they're starting them now, but they want to hold on to their money as long as possible till the end of the year. So some of I would say a majority of these, even if they have an earlier grant cycle, they don't pay out until November or December. But that's good for where we are now because you have the time to do the research, have the time to make those connections for those cycles and that payout later in the year. So we're at a good time to start learning this, to start practicing this. Put this in your schedule as practicing if you're an ED, if you're a grant writer, whatever you are, you're at a great time in the funding landscape of the year to reach new foundations, reach new things. Um, so Abe, do you have anything else before we dive in?
Yes. I'm going to leave you guys with Lainey. I have a presentation to make. I'm going to be talking about how the Donald Trump administration is changing the landscape of government contracting. I have a presentation later on today. So I need to run to that there. And so you guys are going to be hanging out with Lainey. And so it's good seeing all of you joining us. But Lainey is going to be doing the rest of the podcast with you. So I will be watching it on replay at another time. So thanks for coming, joining us. And Lainey, have a fun time without me. I know you're going to do a great job, and you're going to have a fun time with or without me, regardless. So
Well, thank you, Abe. I hope your presentation goes well.
thank you.
Okay, so let's dive on in. We've talked about with first, you're going to start with what you know, who is in a lot of times in business, you'll hear maybe your inner circle or like the people you're connected with, that most people are connected to like 100 people. Well, think about that in a nonprofit way. Who are you connected with? Who do you know that knows someone? Um, so write down that, churches you've been connected with, any type of organizations, that's a way that you can start doing research on that. Another thing, and this is something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, but looking at similar organizations. So similar organizations they have 990s. Every single organization has a 990. So if you look at a similar nonprofit, they are going to have these who they're receiving funding from, who they're receiving grants from. So that's a great way to kind of see. Two, it we're looking at it from both ways. So if you're looking at a 990 and you see a foundation that you're researching, considering putting in an LOI, and then you see somebody on there that does a lot of the same things that you do, then you know that you're aligned with their mission. So that's just a great way to kind of check yourself. Another way to find potential foundations is going to be looking at databases. So, me and Abe, I don't want to spill too much of the secret, but we're working actually on a new grant database for y'all. We see that there's a hole here. We see that a lot of these databases are charging a lot of money, and we want y'all to have access. We want you to have access to these opportunities. We want these nonprofits to have access, and we want y'all to have not only get grants, but have access to these grants. So that's something we're working on. We're hoping to roll that out in the next few months and definitely be looking for that announcement. But the current databases that I would really recommend that you look at are grants.gov. That's going to be for federal. That's not going to be to find foundations. However, that's a great resource for finding that federal funding. Um, Open Grants. A couple of podcasts ago, we had Sidell on our podcast, and he was talking about Open Grants, this amazing platform he's created for nonprofits, and it has foundations. And then the last one is Candid, also known as FDO. Um, Candid is going to be it's going to be more expensive. It has a lot. The cool thing about it is what I'm teaching you today with this 990 is exactly what Candid does. So I'm teaching you how to do it yourself, where Candid pulls all the information that you just have to go through it. But there is a way to do it besides paying the hefty fee that comes with Candid. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you today. And if you're just joining us, I know that we've had some people come on. Go ahead and drop your name, your organization, where you're joining us from. and make sure to stay around because we're going to be having some really cool freebies. And I'm also going to be doing a live overview of if you're wanting to dive into a foundation. I'm reading some of the comments here. So there was a comment about the current administration with government contracting. I would really encourage you to go check out some of our past podcasts that we've done. I'll put in the link because we've touched on this a lot. And so I think that's something that you can definitely learn from. And as it continues to we learn more things and stuff like that, you're we're gonna be making more and making sure y'all have as much information as possible. But I'm putting that in the chat so that you can go back and watch our previous episodes on administration, all those changes, what it's like for contracts and nonprofits. So the last way that I'm going to encourage y'all to identify potential funders is going to be to search for nonprofit websites. This is the tedious way because you've got to find the website. What I get very frustrated with foundation websites is I feel like the grants are hidden. Even when you search grants, they're hidden. So that is something that's the hard way. That's why the 990 way is the way to go because sometimes these grants they're hard to find, maybe emails are hidden, and they're doing that for a reason. They're doing that to cut down on the amount of people that are reaching out to them. So it is truly like hide and seek with these foundation websites. So I'm going to teach you how to locate a foundation's 990 form. So I'm going to share my screen so that y'all can see. Okay, so this is the example I wanted to pull up. It is the Scott Hudgens Family Foundation. They're located in Atlanta, and they are. We're going to walk through, coming into their website. So Scott Hudgens, he was a businessman, a community leader, and a patriot. And here, right here, we're going to see that you can view a partial list of organizations that have been awarded grants. So that's really cool. Well, we're going to find this on the 990. Most people do not have this posted like this. So that's really cool that it's already there. So if we're coming into this foundation, maybe you saw something on social media, maybe you saw a friend that received a grant from them, or you just saw something about the foundation, you're wanting to learn more about them. The mission is going to be the greatest way to learn that because it's going to kind of tell you what they fund. So he was a World War II veteran and he lived and worked in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Some of the things you can see that he funds is services for developmentally handicapped, services for homeless individuals, service for veterans, hospice care, alcoholism and substance abuse. And he wants to promote self sufficiency through education programs and technical training programs. And his foundation is really focused on education, healthcare, and the arts. So if you're looking at this and you're not necessarily seeing what your organization does, don't completely just stop looking at this and stop your search straight off the bat. I want you to continue to kind of dive in a little bit more because even though it has this, if we see some things um, on the 990, then we will, know that he does fund outside of this. So another cool thing that we see a lot of is these quizzes. So when you press initiate the online, it's this grant qualification. So it's going to go through and asking you questions. That way you can, that way you're going to be able to know, are you a true fit? So they actually do not give you the LOI information. I know this because this is an organization that I have written some LOIs for and I've done some different stuff for, but a lot of times they're not actually going to give you the information to apply or submit that LOI unless you pass this quiz. It's not really pass or fail, but it's just making sure that you align with their missions. So if I would highly recommend if there's a quiz, first off, you have to take it to get the information, but this is a great way to where you don't have to rely on your own sources. They're going to tell you about this quiz. So, am I a private individual seeking funds? No. Are you seeking a grant for the purpose of influencing legislation? No. Are you a religious organization seeking a grant for religious purposes? No. Am I a 501c3? Yes. Um, am I in the state of Georgia? Yes. Okay, so perfect. This means that I qualify for this grant. So what it's going to tell me is it's going to tell me everything I need in this LOI. Um, it's going to say that we need the name and location, a brief summary of your organization's history, missions and goals, description, and cite the provisions of the Scott Hudgens Foundation. So you're going to go back to their mission statement and cite those mission statements aligned with the organization. So it tells you here that it must be no more than 2 pages and it must be submitted via email. However, do you notice what it leaves out? It's leaving out how much money you should ask for. You know, are they going to give $100,000? Do they only give $5,000? It doesn't tell you. So this is where it's going to come in great for figuring out a 990. So to go to this, I at the end of this, I'm going to send you all the links for these. So if you hold out, so I'm on ProPublica. This is the one I like the most because it's not going to make you pay to get the 990 and it has a really good overview of it. So what you're going to be able to do is you just come in here and I'm just typing in Hudgens Foundation. And right down here in Duluth, Georgia is the Scott Hudgens Family Foundation. So you're going to be able to see, a overview of this. Their total assets are 59 million and they have to give away 5%. So their budget's pretty large for how much they have to give away. In 2023, they gave away 6.2 million. And this is cool too that you can subscribe on here so you can actually submit your email if there's an organization that you want to keep up with and know what's going on with, or maybe your own organization you want to keep up with. So you are going to be able to subscribe here. You're going to see how long they've been tax exempt, and this tells you kind of what they fund, what they describe. So I'm interested too because this said religious, and we know that we said no to religious in the quiz. So that's interesting that maybe they do fund religious organizations. So once you scroll down on this page, you're going to see their last one. With a lot of times with 990s, they're 1 year behind. So even though we're in 2025, last year was 2024, 2023 will be the most up-to-date filing. So you can see that they made 186,000 and that their charitable disbursements were 5.3 million. So you can go down here to, this is really cool information right here. It's going to be their key employees. So if you see somebody that you're wanting to reach out to right here, you're going to be able to see their names. You can connect with them on LinkedIn, maybe try to find an email on Google. So, but what I want to teach you is coming up here and you can press view filing. So it's their 990. It was filed on August 20th, 2024. So let's view this filing. So this is the entire 990. So you can print this off. However, what I'm going to teach you is just to scroll down. Some of this is going to be, you're not going to be able to see some of the information, which is okay. All we're wanting to do is we are wanting to go down here. You're going to scroll to, I'll tell you what page it is when I get to it. To page 11, page 12. And this is going to tell you every person, every organization that they gave a grant or a contribution to, and it says approve for future payment. So, and it tells you what I think is really cool is the purpose of the grant or the contribution. So you can kind of see, does this align with what I'm doing? So if you are, this it's by alphabetical order, but if you are doing anything with Alzheimer's disease, then you're going to see that they gave $25,000 to support programs and services for those struggling with Alzheimer's and related dementias. They also gave to the American Cancer Society and its general operating support for the Hope Lodge cancer patient. So right there, they gave $100,000. So before we go through, I'm not going to go through all of these. I just want you to be able to see a high level and what we're trying to look for in these 990s to get the information that we need. So we know that coming from the original website with writing our LOI, our biggest question was how much is a respectful amount to ask for. So something I want you to really stick out to you when you're thinking about writing LOIs is this idea that if this is your first touch with this organization, you do not want to ask the max number. Um, I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying they're not gonna give it. I'm saying coming from a respectful way, my personal opinion, my professional opinion is do not ask the top of what they're giving. I think sometimes that's that way in grants too. If this is your first time applying for this, if it's a federal grant, I think the rules are a little bit different. I think you can ask for the max on a federal grant if your program matches what needs to be and it needs the max amount. However, for a foundation and for an LOI or a grant, I would not recommend asking for the max amount. I would recommend, looking at your program and asking for a reasonable amount because this is my thought process on it and this is what I encourage my clients to do. I tell them, I say, you have the ultimate choice and you can decide what you want to do. However, if I was you, I'm just giving you my professional opinion, is that we see here, for example, on this, the most so they gave CHOA 500,000 and it was for actually their new, Aflac building, and they gave the Community Foundation of Northeast Georgia, um, 2.16. We know this was for a donor advised fund, so that's a little bit different, so we're not gonna hold that one. So right now we're at 500,000 was the most. Here's another 100,000, um, support for residential group homes, and let's see if we have another one. We have a 50,000. See, we have a 12,000, and that was for a general operating fund. So you see, for the most part, we are having under um, 50,000, I would say. We have some 10,000s. We do have 100,000. So my recommendation coming into this, with looking at the numbers, if I was recommending a client, I would say max to ask for is $20,000 with your first touch. However, I would say even go a little bit lower. It's it's a little bit of a game that we're playing with risk and reward. So, yes, we get a lower amount, but if we're able to make that connection and make a lifelong connection, then next year maybe we ask for some more. And the next year we ask for some more, rather if we go to it asking for all of that money up front, what if we say no and then there's kind of a bad taste left in our mouth of the organization and we're not able to go year after year back to them. So that's what I want you to see with this amount. That kind of gives you a good idea. However, they did give $100,000 to the American Cancer Society. I want to come in here and kind of look at some different things so we can see too how broad these personal foundations are for what they're giving for. So I just want to go over that for a second. So they gave to music, they gave to a school, they gave to theater, youth. We saw CHOA. Um, they've given to some community centers. Um, this is an early learning program. They gave to the Gwinnett College, Gwinnett Hospital, um, literacy. I feel like they're very youth forward. They gave to the National Christian Foundation. So that does show right here that religious organizations can give, or that they might would be considered a Christian. So if you are a Christian organization, you could align with them. Let's keep going down. We know that this is a hospital. Art Center, Salvation Army. So as you can see here, once you get into these 990s, you're really able to see what they care about, what that foundation, what their mission really looks like. Here's another senior services. Here's a museum. Here's a special needs school. So you're able to come in here. It's a ministry. However, it is for men experiencing homelessness and addiction. So you're able to come in here and really see what they care about, what they're giving to. And this is another way for you to be able to look at if you are an addiction recovery center, then you're going to know that this organization, this foundation, that's something they really care about. That they said that in their mission, but their 990 matches that and shows that. So when you're looking at the 990s, you're just able to come in here and see this has specifically what each of the money went to for this nonprofit. So another thing I want to show you on this 990 is we're going to keep going down, and you're going to be able to see the um, who works here. So that's what we're wanting to find is, I think we passed it. I think it's going to be up here. So who is involved in this foundation? Who works here? Okay, right here. So we're able to see that William Brogdon is the executive director. So he works full time. He doesn't work full time, but he is the executive director of this foundation. So he would be a great contact. Another one would be, Cole Hudgens or Dallas Hudgens. It does not have their contact information on here, but it is going to give you a name and a person to look for. So this can be a LinkedIn. Maybe this is just typing in Dallas Hudgens, Hudgens Family Foundation. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to be able to kind of get a name. And there's some other opportunities too for once you have a name to kind of reverse search it on Google to find emails. So that's an opportunity as well. So if you're just joining us, make sure to leave your name and what organization you're with. And if you have any foundations or anything you're wanting to look for, make sure to post that as well. That way we can kind of have a live chat about what is going on. So let's talk about next how to determine if a foundation is a good fit for you. So we've talked about, do they fund organizations that are like your organization? Do they fund organizations that do the same thing, located the same places? I think geographical location, we know that that foundation we were looking at was in Gwinnett. However, some will say, I've seen some foundations, they will word it as, we mainly serve Georgia. However, if it is a nationwide scale, meaning, for example, cancer research. Cancer research does not just affect one state or one city, that's nationwide and that's worldwide. They will say that we fund opportunities that are nationwide, or we fund programs that reach a lot of people. Homelessness is not just focused in one place. So that's one of the ways we're gonna determine if they're a good fit is if they fund organizations like yours, programs like yours, um, and then another thing I want you to think about is if you're asking for general operating support, did they fund general operating support last year? We saw that yes, they did. If we didn't see that, that's maybe something that I would tell you to err on the side of precaution and ask for program support. Program support is going to be specific support for a specific program. For example, if you support homeless people in Atlanta, then your program support is going to be maybe that you do Meals on Wheels every Tuesday. That's a specific program. These are some specific things you need for that program. Your operating support is going to be that you need $20,000 to pay rent. Well, those are two different things. If we know they haven't done operating support in the past, I would lead towards programmatic. Um, Another thing, and we talked about this a little bit to determine if the foundation is good, what is the average grant size? So you truly could go in there, make an Excel spreadsheet, and hit average and find an average amount. We saw a lot of 20s, 10s, 25. So we know that let's stay around there and not be on the high end. We don't want to be an outlier. We want to do our best to make a connection and make a relationship that's going to last. Um, Another thing is, do they have, we talked about this, geographic restrictions? And just making sure that if they specifically say that they only fund things in the 30507 zip code and you're not in the 30507 zip code, I don't know if that's a good fit. There's always the opportunity that you could try it or maybe do a reach out and just say, "Hey, we align very well with your missions. However, we're in, the zip code next door. Is this something we could submit to?" I had a client. We were looking at a foundation. I felt after doing the research, the 990 research, everything, that we were really good prospects for this LOI cycle, for this grant cycle. So they asked that you sent a preliminary email before submitting an LOI, explaining your programs, explaining what you do, and where you're located at. So we wrote out our email, we sent it in, and we, explained how we felt that our missions were aligned, and we got an email back. And this was the first time I've ever got an email back, and they said, "We just don't feel like you align." The reason was geographic location. It was not had nothing to do with our missions. It had nothing to do with anything. It had to do with they wanted people that were only in the city of Atlanta, which we thought was very interesting because I know you're thinking, "Well, Lainey, if they said that, then why did you submit the email?" Well, their email said City of Atlanta and State of Georgia. That's what it said on the organization, so we were thinking, "Okay, we're not City of Atlanta, but we are in the State of Georgia." However, this year they decided that they were no longer taking they wanted to focus on the City of Atlanta. So it can change from year to year and cycle to cycle that they wanna move towards a certain mission. Maybe they felt like one of their missions, if they have 3 main missions that they are focused on, maybe if they felt like one of their mission was left behind last year, they wanna focus on that one this year. So, creating an email contact, is always great, and, submitting the LOI is always great if you feel like you check all the boxes and just waiting to hear back from them. And then so another thing that you're gonna see with foundations is that a lot of them some of them have open application processes, some of them do not. So there's different ways that they'll go about this. Like we've talked about, the first way is with an LOI. So they're gonna go and ask that you submit an LOI, and they're gonna come back and either grant the funding, or they'll ask that you go to step 2 in the, grant process, and you would submit a true grant application once you're invited to do so. The other process that I've seen is that they have no LOIs, no open grant process, and you have to be invited. So, with this, there's a couple of ways that I would go about trying to get that invite. First thing, I would never send an email that says, "Can I have a grant invite?" or anything like that. I would never point blank ask that because they tell you on the website that you have to be invited. So you don't want to be asked to be invited the same way you don't want to be asked to be invited to someone's party. But there are some ideas and some ways that you can make that connection. I know last week, I think in our um, podcast, we talked about making that connection with contracting officers with commenting on their LinkedIn's. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea is connecting with people on LinkedIn. We saw how to do that with Directors 990s. Another way to do that is send it out to your volunteers, your donors, your board of directors. Do you know anybody that is connected to this foundation? Because I was working with an organization and we were researching some foundations and we were researching 2 foundations, and that was their thing is that they wanted you to have a connection with them before you invited. So we started kind of doing fillers. We sent it out to our board, we sent it out to our volunteers, and we said, "Does anybody know anybody in any way connected to this company?" Well, turns out somebody on our board's uncle used to be the CEO of this company. And so, obviously, if we would have never asked, we'd have never known this, but they said, you know, make that connection, put that in the LOI, and he's gonna reach back out to his people. And long story short, you're gonna get the grant, is how it worked out. So always ask around. Don't just assume that you don't know anybody. You might not know anybody, but somebody on your board might know somebody, so your volunteer list might know somebody. The world is there's that saying that's a small world. It is. Somebody probably knows somebody in some capacity, so make sure you ask about that. And if you have specific names, um, send that out to your board, send that out to your volunteer and say, do you know Lainey Buffington? Does your mom know Lainey Buffington? Does somebody have a connection to someone and be able to make that connection? So, um, kind of wrapping up, I don't think anybody's putting in comments of any foundations that we want to do. I want to invite y'all. I'm going to be putting in the chat. We have an event coming next week. I'm going to be teaching it, and it's grant writing. So, this is for our nonprofits, but it's going to be an overview of um, it's unlocking your funding gold mine. But with grant writing, how does that work? How can you position yourself for success in the grant writing sector? So I'm going to actually put that in the chat, and if anybody would like to come join me, it's going to be next Tuesday. We would love to have you. And this is a opportunity to just join along and kind of learn more information. We're going to be having these grant writing classes more and more frequently as just something to teach you and another way to diversify your funding. I also want to invite you next week. We have a really cool podcast that we're going to be doing. We're every Wednesdays, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time live, or you can always come back after it gets posted if you're doing a rewatch. And we are going to be teaching about AI in the GovCon space. So we really want to be something different. So you've seen AI in proposal writing, but we're going to be more focused on different AI tools that are not proposal writing so that you can learn something new and learn something that you haven't seen before. So I'm also going to put that in the chat so that if you're not registered for that, or if you're rewatching and you want to get registered to watch that live, you'll have the link for that. So thank you everyone for sticking around with us, for hanging out. My producer is going to post our contact if you want to get in contact with any of us at the Government Contracting Association. She's going to put our email and our website. Make sure to also check out our community. We frequently post grants. We have contracting, we have news in contracting, and it's just a space to really connect with other like-minded individuals. So we'll post that in the chat as well so you can see that. And if you've made it this far, I thank you so much. And I am going to give you your freebie. So what your freebie is going to be is it's a how to step by step do exactly what we said. So I know you have the video you're able to watch, but it's going to include the links. It's going to include how to find a 990, some extra tips, and some extra just things that maybe we didn't talk about that I dive into a little bit more. So I'm going to post that in the chat. And if you're rewatching, it'll be in the link below. The description box so that you can go and make sure. And if you felt like this was helpful, make sure to, send us an email. Tell us, hey, leave a comment down below. And make sure too to leave a comment of anything else that you want us to touch on. Maybe it's contracting, maybe it's nonprofit things, teaching courses. I know that sometimes we do teaching, sometimes we're doing more interviews and stuff like that, but we would love to hear your feedback, whether if it's email in the comments, what you want to see. We want this to be great for you. We want this to be valuable for you, and we want to be able to teach you as much as we possibly can so that you can go and diversify your organization, diversify your company, and create bigger and better opportunities for yourself. So I'm posting that here below. It's called 990 Download. So just posted that, and make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and we hope to see you next Wednesday. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.